The air was thick with tension. I could feel every eye in the room on me, judging, condemning. Their whispers slid under my skin, cutting deeper than I ever thought possible. They were supposed to love me. Instead, they turned their backs, revealing the ugliest truth of all. The people I trusted most were the ones who would betray me. I used to believe that family was everything. Love was supposed to be unconditional, a constant in a world that constantly changes. I thought that if I worked hard enough, if I loved them enough, my parents would always be proud of me. My name is Emily, and for 25 years, I poured my heart into making them happy. Every achievement was for them. Every sacrifice was for their happiness. But the truth they'd hidden from me for so long came crashing down on my birthday, the one day that should have been for me. I woke up that morning, the same way I had every year before. The sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, warm and familiar, like a promise that today would be like any other. My parents had always made my birthday special, even if we didn't have much. We weren't wealthy, but I never cared. I didn't need extravagant gifts. All I wanted was the feeling that I was seen, that I mattered to them. But today, something felt different. Something in the pit of my stomach told me that this year wouldn't be the same. My life wasn't perfect. But I worked hard. I had a job that drained me, but I never complained. It was a marketing position, the kind where you give your all and end up with barely enough time for yourself. But I pushed through. One day, I told myself I would make enough to take my parents on a vacation, a dream I had carried with me since childhood. My mom always said, "Family comes first, Emily." So I made them my priority, even when it felt like the world was draining me. I spent the rest of the morning looking through old family photos, memories of happier times when everything seemed simpler, when love felt like it could solve any problem. By the time the evening rolled around, I had convinced myself that everything would be okay. It was just a birthday dinner, right? Nothing to worry about. But when I walked into that living room with my parents and friends gathered around the table, the atmosphere was off. It wasn't the usual warmth I had come to expect. Instead, there was something cold hanging in the air, a weight that pressed down on my chest. The clinking of silverware on china echoed like a distant drumbeat as I sat down at the head of the table. The lights were dimmed just slightly, and there were candles flickering on the table, romantic, comforting. But the warmth didn't reach me. As my mom and dad exchanged glances, I could feel the change in the air. It wasn't love or celebration. It was something darker, something foreign, and then it began. My mom, always the one who was gentle with her words, looked at me across the table. There was no smile in her eyes, just a calm, unwavering expression that felt completely foreign. Her voice, when it came, was steady, but it struck me like a hammer. "Emily, we've been talking." She paused, as though weighing her words carefully. "We think you need to change." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean, change?" I don't understand." My dad, usually quiet and reserved, leaned forward. His face was as stern as I had ever seen it. "You've been selfish, Emily, so wrapped up in your own life that you don't even realize how disconnected you've become from your family. You're out of touch with what really matters. You need to start thinking about your future, your real future." The words hit me like a tidal wave, sweeping the breath from my lungs. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't a birthday celebration. It wasn't a toast to the years we had spent together. This was an intervention. And it was happening in front of everyone I cared about. Selfish? What are you talking about? My voice trembled, but I fought to keep it steady. I've always tried ... I've always tried to make you proud. But the silence that followed was suffocating. My dad didn't even flinch. His gaze remained cold, unfeeling. "This isn't about trying, Emily. This is about you refusing to change, refusing to see what we're telling you." My mom's face softened for just a moment, but it wasn't enough to hide the judgment in her eyes. "You're just not the person you used to be. You need to listen to us for once. You're so lost in your own world." The words were a slap to my face, each one ringing louder than the last. It felt like the room was closing in on me, the walls pressing against my chest. I tried to hold back the tears, but they came anyway, hot and unstoppable. I couldn't breathe, but I do everything for you. I choked on the words. Everything I do is for you. They just looked at me, cold, distant. You're not enough, Emily. My dad's words pierced through me like an arrow. This isn't just about you. It's about the fact that you're unwilling to see the bigger picture. The world spun. I felt like I was sinking into the floor, drowning in my own shame. In that moment, I realized I was alone in a room full of people. The humiliation cut deeper than anything I'd ever felt. This wasn't just a birthday dinner. This was my family tearing me apart, exposing all my flaws in front of my friends. In front of everyone who was supposed to love me, my closest friends, people I thought had my back sat there in stunned silence. Their eyes avoided mine, and the truth hit me like a punch in the gut. They agreed with my parents. They were just as cold, just as judgmental. They had all become strangers to me in that one moment. I wanted to scream, to shout, to run away from everything and everyone. But instead, I sat there helpless as the last piece of my dignity slipped away. My parents had turned on me. They had turned my special day into a battleground without saying another word. I stood up. My legs felt weak, unsteady, but I couldn't stay in that room for another second. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor felt deafening. I walked towards the door, but as I reached for the handle, I heard my mother's voice behind. Faint but persistent. Emily, please don't, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. If I did, I knew I would break completely. I ran out of the house, my breath coming in short gasps. The cold night air hit my skin like ice, but it didn't matter, I was numb. My heart was pounding in my chest as the sound of my mother's voice calling after me faded into the distance. They were supposed to love me. They were supposed to be the ones who had my back. Instead, they had humiliated me, stripped me of my dignity, and left me alone in the dark. I thought I knew who they were, who I was. But now, I was lost. The storm in my chest raged on, threatening to swallow me whole. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever could have imagined. But one thing was clear. I would never let them hurt me like this again. The weight of everything, every lie, every hurt, every word they threw at me pressed down on my chest, suffocating me. I had always believed in love, in the security of family, in the safety of knowing that someone had my back. But now that foundation had crumbled, leaving nothing but the searing fire of betrayal. And in that fire, something ignited within me an anger that I would no longer suppress. I would use it. It would be my fuel. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Home was the place where they tore me apart. Instead, I walked aimlessly through the streets, lost. For the first time in my life, I had nowhere to go. No one to turn to. My phone was vibrating in my pocket, constantly texts from my friends, from my family, but I couldn't bring myself to read a single one. I couldn't even cry. I had nothing left to give. I felt the emptiness in my chest, a void that stretched, endlessly swallowing me whole. I was alone. And the people who were supposed to love me, they had discarded me without a second thought. For days, I shut myself in my apartment, the blinds drawn, the air thick with loneliness. I didn't eat. I barely slept. My mind was a blur of rage and confusion. I wanted to disappear, to fade away from the world that had so easily turned its back on me. But then, in the silence of my room, something began to shift. I couldn't stay like this. I couldn't let their cruelty define me. If no one else cared, I had to care about myself. I had to find a way to rise from the ashes, to take control of my life again. The first step was simple. I had to move. I had to feel something, anything. So I started running. At first, it was just a way to escape the suffocating emptiness in my chest. But as I pushed my body further each day, I started to feel the weight of my anger fueling each step. I ran through the streets, my feet pounding the pavement, until my lungs burned and my legs screamed for rest. But with each breath, something inside me started to shift. The pain from that night, the humiliation, the betrayal was still there, deep. in my bones, but I wasn't going to let it consume me. I wasn't going to let them win. I needed to rebuild. I needed to prove that I could survive, that I could thrive without them. I began working on myself, not just physically, but mentally. I dug into self-development books, watched motivational videos, and started journaling. I needed to understand why this happened. I needed to find out who I really was without the weight of their expectations. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to be perfect for anyone else. I wasn't trying to meet their standards. I was focusing on myself, on healing, on becoming someone stronger. And with every run, every book I read, every word I wrote, I felt a little more like the person I had always been meant to be, and the most powerful realization of all, I didn't need their validation. I didn't need them to love me to love myself. I had to stand up on my own, to stop waiting for their approval. The real turning point came when I finally made myself walk back into my office. It had been over a week since the disaster of my birthday dinner, and the thought of facing my coworkers, of showing my face after what happened, made my stomach turn. But I knew I couldn't hide forever. I had already hidden from my family, from the world for far too long. It was time to take back my life. I stood outside the building, staring at the entrance. It felt like a battlefield. But I wasn't the same person who had walked out of that office in a daze. I wasn't the same person who had let those words tear her apart. The Emily who had been humiliated, broken, abandoned, she was gone. I'd become someone new. Someone who wouldn't let anyone, not even my own family, decide who I was. With a deep breath, I stepped forward and walked through those doors. The first few days back were difficult. There were whispers behind my back, people who looked at me like they knew my secret, like they knew everything that had happened. I could feel their judgment, their pity, but I wasn't here to win them over. I wasn't here for their approval. I was here for me. And slowly it started to show. My work improved. I was sharper, more focused. I had a clarity now that I never had before. I wasn't just doing my job, I was excelling. I began to implement new strategies, pushing myself further than I had ever pushed before. But all the while, my mind was focused on one thing: revenge. The anger that had once threatened to drown me was now my driving force. It wasn't just about getting even, it was about showing them what they had done to me. Showing them that their betrayal hadn't destroyed me. It had made me stronger. Every time I completed a task, every time I nailed a presentation, I thought of them, my parents, my friends, the people who had left me behind. And with each success, the fire inside me grew stronger. I wasn't just rebuilding. I was forging something new, something unbreakable. Just when I thought I was finally on track, just when I had started to believe I could do this without them, my phone buzzed on my desk. I had been ignoring it for days, but something about this notification made my heart race. I hesitated for a moment before swiping the screen. The message was from my mother. "I'm sorry, Emily. We were wrong. Can we talk?" My breath caught in my throat. I felt my pulse quicken, my hands shaking slightly as I read the words again. They wanted to talk. After everything, after the humiliation, after they had torn me apart, they wanted to talk. For a brief moment, I was tempted to respond, to hear them out, to let them explain. But then I remembered everything that hurt, the anger, the pain. I wasn't going to let them distract me. I had a plan I had worked on for weeks. I wasn't about to let their sudden apology pull me off course. I stared at the message for a long time, my finger hovering over the screen. And then, without a word, I deleted it. This was my time. And nothing, not even them, was going to stop me now. I stood up from my desk, looking out the window at the city below. The path ahead was clear. The revenge I had dreamed of was within reach. But there was something nagging at me, something deep inside that wondered whether I was making a mistake. Was I becoming the very thing I hated? I shook my head. It didn't matter. What mattered was my next step, and I was ready. But just as I turned away from the window, my phone buzzed again, another message, this time from my father. I could feel that the storm inside me had reached its peak. Every emotion, every ounce of pain, regret, and anger had built up inside me, gathering like a storm ready to break. And now the time had come to let it all go, to confront the people who had broken me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about something deeper, something more powerful. This was about taking control. For so long, I had let my parents control me, shape me into the person they wanted me to be. I followed their rules, lived by their expectations, and for a long time, I believed that if I did everything right, they would love me the way I needed them to. But the intervention, the humiliation, had shattered that illusion. I'd spent months drowning in their judgment, feeling smaller and smaller, but no more Dot now. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I'd spent the last 6 months not just getting back to normal, but becoming someone they never thought I could be: stronger, independent, unstoppable. But revenge ... Revenge is more than about making someone feel pain. It's about transformation. It's about taking what they threw at you and turning it into something powerful. It had been weeks since I'd seen them. I'd avoided their calls, their messages. But now it was time to face them. I invited my parents to dinner, the three of us, just like old times. But this time, nothing would be the same. I chose a small, intimate restaurant, dimly lit, just enough to give it a touch of familiarity. I wanted them to feel the weight of what was about to happen. As I sat at the table, the chair felt different beneath me. The power had shifted. I wasn't the scared, broken girl they had left in the dust. I was someone new when they arrived. My mother's warm smile did nothing to ease the tension that hung in the air. My father, usually the quiet one, looked at me with that same blank stare I had grown accustomed to. "Emily," my mother began, her voice tentative, as if unsure of how to approach me. "It's good to see you." I didn't return the smile. "Is it?" I said, my voice calm but icy. "Because, honestly, I'm not sure if I can say the same." They both froze, not expecting this response. It was time. The moment had arrived. I've done more in the last 6 months than I've done in the last 6 years, I continued, staring directly into their eyes, my words cutting through the air like a sharp blade. "And it's all because you underestimated me. You thought breaking me would make me fall. You were wrong." Their faces, once filled with doubt, confusion, and coldness, now showed signs of shock. They had never heard me speak like this before. I could see it in their eyes, their disbelief. My father's voice cracked, trying to defend himself, but I didn't let him get the chance. "No," I interrupted, my tone stronger now. "You don't get to explain, not anymore. You wanted to control me. You wanted to break me. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the girl who waits for your approval. I don't need it. I never did." For a long moment there was silence. The kind that stretched so long it felt like time had frozen. My father opened his mouth to speak again, but my mother held up a hand, silencing him. I watched her closely, her face now softer, almost ... regretful. For a second, I wondered if I'd gone too far, if my words had broken her too. But then she spoke. "I was wrong, Emily. We were all wrong." Her voice was barely a whisper, her eyes filling with tears. "We were afraid of losing you, and we thought we knew what was best. But you've shown us that we were the ones who needed to change." It was like a punch to my gut. I wasn't expecting this. It wasn't the apology I had imagined. It wasn't the apology I dreamed of all those nights alone, but it was something raw, something real. My mind raced, torn between the cold bitterness that had fueled my anger and a strange, unexpected compassion that was bubbling up from deep inside me. Could I forgive them? Did I want to? I had spent so long angry, so long planning my revenge. But in that moment, I felt something I wasn't prepared for, a strange, aching kind of compassion. Was it possible to forgive them for what they had done? Was it possible to let go of this burning rage that had defined me for months? I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath, weighing their words. They had said sorry in their own way. They had admitted they were wrong. But was that enough? Was that the payoff I had been waiting for? I had gotten my revenge, not in the way I had always imagined. No dramatic scene, no epic confrontation. The world hadn't been watching, waiting for the fireworks to go off. But maybe that was the point. My revenge wasn't about making them feel the pain I had. It wasn't about watching them suffer. My revenge was about standing up for myself. About finding my own power. I'm glad you're finally seeing the truth, I said, my voice steady, but the anger was gone now. But it's too late for us. For me. What you did to me, it's done. And now I'm done with you. I paused, feeling the weight of those words. My heart didn't race anymore. The storm inside me had passed. There was no more pain, no more need for revenge. The realization hit me like a wave. Revenge wasn't about them at all. It was about me. I had used their betrayal to fuel my transformation. I had let that anger drive me to become stronger, better than I had ever been. And now I was free. I stood up, feeling the power in my own legs and my own body as I walked toward the door. The finality of it all settled in as I glanced over my shoulder one last time. My parents sat there, their eyes filled with guilt, regret, and confusion. I had no more anger left for them. No more need for answers. I had finally found my freedom. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. I was free from their control, free from their judgment. I was finally truly free.